The Cathar Dominion, a tapestry woven from the threads of 100 conquered systems, considered itself the architect of galactic order. From the obsidian spires of their throne world, Cathar Prime, edicts flowed outwards, shaping the destinies of lesser species. Humanity, inhabitants of a rather unremarkable sol system, had recently flickered onto their long-range awareness scans, categorized with bureaucratic dispassion as Tier 7 emergent nuisance potential. Their intelligence, a mosaic of passively gathered M leakage and the faint, ghostly echoes of a few deep-range probes dispatched years prior, depicted a species both fractured and paradoxically ambitious. They were squabbling amongst themselves, their planetary governance a chaotic patchwork, yet their scientific communities were audaciously prodding the very fabric of spacetime, inching towards practical faster-than-light travel. Such ambition, unchecked in a lesser species, was a weed to be culled before it choked the Dominion's meticulously cultivated gardens. Thus the order was given, not for a fleet nor even a squadron. Such a response would be laughably disproportionate, an admission of concern where none was warranted. Instead, the Cathar High Command selected an instrument of precise, surgical silence. Xyla, known in the hushed, fearful vernacular of subjugated worlds as the Void Shadow. Xyla was less a being and more a legend, an operative whose very existence was a carefully curated rumor designed to instill terror and compliance. Their record was an unbroken litany of decapitated rebellions, sabotaged rival technologies, and disappeared leaders. Xyla's vessel, the Night's Whisper, was itself a whisper made manifest, a sliver of void-black alloy, bristling with sensor ghosts and energy baffles, capable of tiptoeing through the most sophisticated detection grids the galaxy had yet devised. The mission parameters were elegantly simple. Infiltrate the Sol system, identify the primary FTL research facility, believed to be a joint terrestrial-lunar endeavor, and neutralize it. Neutralize in Cathar parlance was an art form. It meant not just destruction, but the subtle erasure of progress, the sowing of confusion, the surgical removal of key personnel, all accomplished with such finesse that the primitives would blame their own incompetence or internal strife. Xyla would be a phantom, leaving behind only a chilling technological regression and the lingering, unspoken warning that some doors are best left unopened. As the Night's Whisper sliced through the interstellar medium, its single occupant reviewed the target data with a detachment bordering on boredom. Cathar physiology, adapted to the thin, cold atmosphere of their homeworld, made them naturally patient, their lifespans stretching across human centuries. Xyla had seen countless species rise and fall, their brief, bright sparks extinguished by the Dominion's shadow. Earth would be no different. The vessel's internal chronometer marked its approach to the Sol system's heliopause. Xyla initiated the final stealth protocols, the Night's Whisper seeming to dissolve into the background radiation of the cosmos. Unseen, unknown to the Cathar, and indeed to the overwhelming majority of the 7 billion souls on the blue marble Xyla targeted, a silent guardian watched. The Aegis Protocol, a paranoid fantasy made real, had been born decades earlier from a single, anomalous transmission, a snatch of structured signal from the depths of space that a small, influential cabal of scientists and military minds had interpreted not as a greeting, but as a potential gunshot in the dark. This cabal, operating in the deepest shadows of global power structures, had siphoned off unimaginable black-budget resources, year after year, decade after decade, to construct a shield. Its outermost layer, Project Damocles, was an array of autonomous weapon platforms and hypervelocity kinetic interceptors seeded throughout the outer solar system, all networked to a sentient quantum AI buried deep beneath the glacial ice of Antarctica, a digital Cerberus at the gates of Earth. As the Night's Whisper crossed an invisible, arbitrary line demarcated in Damocles' engagement algorithms, a line far beyond lunar, well outside Earth's atmospheric mantle, the AI registered it. No conventional Earth-based sensor, no telescope or radar array could have pierced Xyla's stealth. But Damocles wasn't looking for ships. It was looking for the subtle space-time distortions and unique energy signatures that betrayed the presence of advanced, non-human drive systems. The Night's Whisper, for all its Cathar sophistication, tripped those esoteric wires. Aboard his ship, Xyla noted a momentary flicker on a tertiary threat display, a phantom reading so faint, so improbable it was dismissed as a sensor ghost, perhaps a ripple from a distant pulsar. Before the thought could fully coalesce, before any evasive maneuver could be contemplated, Damocles acted. There was no warning klaxon, no human hand hovering over a launch button. With the cold, irrefutable logic of its programming, the AI calculated an intercept. From multiple, concealed platforms, kinetic rods accelerated to terrifying velocities, and a focused lance of coherent energy, a technology Earth wasn't supposed to possess for another 2 centuries, converged. The Night's Whisper, the pride of Cathar stealth engineering, met a wall of incandescent fury. Its shields, designed to deflect the glancing blows of conventional weaponry or absorb the probing scans of lesser empires, flared and died in microseconds. The hull, forged from alloys tested in nebulae and black hole accretion disks, buckled, then vaporized. Xyla, the Void Shadow, architect of 100 silent victories, experienced a brief, impossible moment of bewilderment before being consumed by a silent, stellar-hot explosion. The debris, already superheated, sublimated or was flung outwards, too small, too diffuse to register as anything more than a brief shower of high-velocity cosmic dust. Deep beneath Antarctica, in the chilled, sterile command center of the Aegis Protocol, a handful of pale, sleep-deprived human operators stared at the automated engagement report scrolling across their main display. Green status icons glowed against a stark black background. Threat neutralized, the final line read. Asset, Cathar Assassin-class vessel. Intercept point, 0.8 AU Transjovian vector. No atmospheric entry, no debris of significant size detected. A stunned silence filled the bunker. The system, their life's secret, obsessive work, had performed not just as expected, but far beyond their most wildly optimistic simulations. It had seen the wolf at the door and dispatched it before it could even scratch the paint. Meanwhile, light years away at a Cathar listening post, the telemetry feed from the Night's Whisper abruptly vanished. A red icon blinked on a monitoring console, signifying signal lost. Junior technicians ran diagnostics, searching for an explanation. Engine malfunction, a catastrophic failure of the stealth generator, collision with unmapped microsingularity. The duty officer, a grizzled veteran of long, uneventful watches, grunted. Log it as an operational anomaly. File under Xyla, presumed lost, equipment failure. The primitives on Earth couldn't have sneezed in its direction. It's an insult to the Void Shadow to even consider it. The Cathar Empire, secure in its technological arrogance, remained blissfully, fatally unaware. Within the Cyclopean, obsidian halls of Cathar Prime, news of Xyla's inexplicable vanishing sent a subtle tremor through the intricate webs of imperial bureaucracy. It was an unwelcome dissonance in the otherwise harmonious symphony of Cathar dominance. Junior analysts, their carapaces betraying a hint of nervous iridescence, presented scenarios involving previously uncatalogued stellar phenomena, cascading system failures within the Night's Whisper, even in hushed whispers, the theoretical possibility of a random high-energy particulate collision. The idea of primitive interference from the target system, Earth, was so far beyond the pale of accepted doctrine that it wasn't even formally tabled. Grand Strategist Vorlag, a towering Cathar whose chitinous armor bore the scars of a dozen pacification campaigns across as many star clusters, listened with imperious disdain from his command throne. His multifaceted eyes, reflecting the cold light of the stratagem, swept over the anxious faces. The Void Shadow, Vorlag's voice resonated, each syllable a precisely weighted stone, was without peer. The vessel, a pinnacle of our stealth technology. If Xyla met an unfortunate end, it was due to a defect inherent in the machinery of passage or a capricious whim of the cosmos itself. To suggest that the primitives of Earth possess the capacity to even detect, let alone challenge, an operative of Xyla's caliber is not merely an error in judgment. It is an insult to the very fabric of Cathar supremacy. His pronouncement, delivered with the unshakable certainty of a being who had never known true defeat, effectively silenced further speculation. The Cathar were a species defined by their rigid hierarchy and an almost religious conviction in their manifest destiny to rule. The Earth anomaly, as it was now officially designated, was logged, cross-referenced with known stellar hazards in that sector, and relegated to the deep archives flagged for a low-priority follow-up by a routine patrol vessel, perhaps in a standard Cathar rotation, equivalent to several Earth years. There were, after all, more pressing concerns for the Dominion. Nascent rebellions in the Outer Rim, trade disputes with the mercantile HTKA Republic, the ongoing terraforming of 3 new garden worlds. A lost assassin, however legendary, was ultimately an acceptable loss when weighed against the grand, unending project of Empire. Back on Earth, the atmosphere within the Aegis Protocol's command bunker beneath the Antarctic ice was anything but complacent. The successful, automated neutralization of the Cathar vessel was a monumental validation of decades of clandestine effort, a vindication of the founding members' almost prophetic paranoia. But this triumph was irrevocably tainted by a chilling, undeniable truth. They were not alone, and the first confirmed contact was an assassination attempt. The silent, lethal efficiency of Project Damocles had averted catastrophe, but it had also slammed the door on humanity's blissful ignorance. General Marcus Armitage, a man whose face seemed carved from granite and whose eyes held the weariness of one who had carried the world's heaviest secret for too long, watched the replayed sensor logs of the Knight's Whisper's final moments. The telemetry, though alien, was terrifyingly clear. The vessel's energy signature, its impossible acceleration, the subtle gravitational lensing that hinted at drive systems far beyond human comprehension, all pointed to an aggressor of staggering technological advancement. Emergency protocols, designed and rehearsed in hushed simulations for this very contingency, unfurled across the global Aegis network. Secure, quantum-entangled communication lines, impervious to any known eavesdropping techniques, hummed to life, connecting Armitage to a select, pre-designated council of world leaders. In heavily shielded video conferences, the evidence was laid bare. The raw data from Damocles, the fragmented, partially decrypted Cathar communications salvaged by Aegis's formidable AI from the Knight's Whisper's fleeting transmissions just before its obliteration. Phrases like FTL capability suppression, primary target designation, research sector, and minimize collateral, maximize technological regression painted a grim picture of cold, calculated intent. There was no mistaking the message. Humanity was a nail to be hammered down. Faced with this irrefutable proof of an imminent and vastly superior extraterrestrial threat, the assembled leaders, representing nations that had, on the surface, spent centuries in various states of geopolitical rivalry, achieved a level of covert consensus that would have been unthinkable just days before. The Aegis Accords were hastily, but unanimously, ratified in absolute secrecy. These accords bound humanity to a singular purpose: survival. Resources, both financial and material, were to be pooled. The world's brightest scientific minds, many toiling in obscurity on theoretical projects, were to be conscripted and consolidated. Industrial capacities were to be secretly retasked, shifting from consumer goods and conventional armaments to the exotic materials and advanced systems demanded by this new, silent war. A global state of undeclared emergency settled upon those few hundred individuals privy to the truth. The world outside continued its daily routines, oblivious. The nascent, clandestine military buildup, orbital construction platforms disguised as deep space observatories, underground research facilities masked as geological survey sites, new generations of aerospace craft whose true purpose was hidden beneath layers of civilian designations, commenced under the overarching Aegis Directive. The official narrative, carefully crafted and disseminated through controlled channels, spoke of ambitious international collaborations to combat climate change, to explore the solar system, to deploy next-generation global communication networks. Any anomalous atmospheric phenomena, any sudden restrictions on airspace or ocean regions were attributed to these benign, progressive endeavors. The crushing burden of this deception fell squarely on the shoulders of the Aegis personnel, who now lived a life of perpetual vigilance, forever looking over their shoulders at the silent, watching stars. The long, uneasy peace of Earth's ignorance was over. The age of preparation had begun. The 5 years that unspooled after the Damocles event were a crucible for humanity, a period of unprecedented, feverish transformation conducted entirely in the shadows. The Aegis Accords, a pact sealed not with ink, but with the shared terror of impending annihilation, became the hidden engine driving global innovation. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, from repurposed diamond mines in the arid heart of Australia to newly excavated caverns beneath the Siberian taiga, and in clandestine orbital facilities shielded by the moon's bulk, humanity's brightest minds waged a desperate war against time and technological disparity. The fragments of Cathar data, meticulously sifted from the night's whispers death throes by Aegis's tireless AI, were like Rosetta Stones from a hostile cosmos. Though encrypted with layers of alien sophistication, a few key principles were painstakingly reverse-engineered. Concepts that had once been the domain of speculative fiction and whiteboard equations began to coalesce into tangible prototypes. Controlled gravity manipulation, particularly for inertial dampening and artificial gravity within spacecraft, saw breakthroughs that would have taken a century of conventional research. Compact fusion reactor designs, small enough to power a frigate yet potent enough to energize directed energy weapons, moved from theoretical schematics to functioning test beds. At the forefront of the FTL research division, now codenamed Project Hermes, was Dr. Aris Thorne, a lanky, perpetually disheveled astrophysicist with a mind that danced on the bleeding edge of theoretical physics. Thorne had once been relegated to the fringes of academia, his theories on traversable wormholes and warp mechanics dismissed as overly imaginative. Now, with the Cathar threat looming, his imaginative work was humanity's best hope. He and his team, a hand-picked collective of brilliant mavericks, worked with an intensity that bordered on obsession, fueled by endless streams of coffee and the silent, omnipresent dread of what lay beyond Sol. Parallel to the scientific sprint, a new kind of soldier was being forged. Major Eva Rostova, a decorated Special Forces operative whose career had been spent in the planet's most unforgiving terrestrial war zones, was plucked from relative obscurity and handed a daunting mandate: create the Void Marines. This wasn't just about teaching soldiers to fight in zero gravity. It was about crafting a doctrine for boarding actions against alien vessels, for combat in vacuum, for enduring the psychological rigors of warfare against a technologically superior, utterly alien foe. Rostova, with her ice-water resolve and a pragmatic approach to lethality, took to the task with grim determination, her training facilities hidden within hollowed-out asteroids in the belt, far from prying eyes. The industrial titans of Earth, their factories once dedicated to automobiles and consumer electronics, now secretly churned out components for the burgeoning Sol Guard. New, exotic alloys, designed for radiation shielding and resistance to unknown energy weapons, were smelted in shielded foundries. Advanced sensor arrays, capable of peering deeper into space and detecting the faintest energy signatures, were assembled with painstaking precision. The first true human warships, the Aegis-class destroyers and the smaller, more agile Stiletto-class corvettes, began to take shape in hidden orbital drydocks, structures cleverly disguised as long-duration space habitats or asteroid mining survey stations. These ships were clunky, utilitarian, and undeniably human in their over-engineered redundancy, but they represented a quantum leap. They incorporated nascent cloaking systems, derived from studying the night's whispers energy dispersal just before Damocles struck, and their primary armaments were a combination of hypervelocity railguns and newly developed plasma cannons, a far cry from the chemically propelled projectiles and rudimentary missile systems of Earth's recent past. Maintaining this global deception was a Herculean task. The Great Deception, as it was sardonically known within Aegis, required a constant, delicate dance of misinformation. Public announcements trumpeted international cooperation on vast geoengineering projects to explain atmospheric disturbances caused by weapons tests. Ambitious lunar colonization initiatives provided cover for the secret construction happening on the far side. The psychological strain on the thousands involved was immense. They were heroes no one could know, saviors operating under a suffocating blanket of secrecy, bearing the weight of their species' survival on their shoulders, all while their friends and families lived in blissful ignorance of the sword hanging over their world. Meanwhile, far beyond the Kuiper Belt, the Cathar Dominion, having long since filed away the Xyla incident as an unfortunate but minor operational loss, finally got around to its low-priority follow-up. Sub-Commander Tethys, a Cathar of middling ambition and typical imperial arrogance, was assigned command of a standard scouting flotilla. 3 Vigilance-class light cruisers, the Stalwart Claw, the Piercing Gaze, and the Iron Mandible. Their mission was simple. A cursory scan of the Sol system, a confirmation of the primitive's technological level, still presumed to be pre-FTL, and if any lingering signs of the long-band FTL research were detected, the delivery of a standard corrective measure, usually a precise orbital bombardment of the offending facility, a sharp rap on the knuckles to remind the lesser species of their place. Tethys, reclining on the command dais of the Stalwart Claw as it prepared to transition from hyperspace, anticipated a thoroughly dull assignment. He envisioned a quick survey, perhaps a token warning shot at an errant communications satellite to assert dominance, and then a swift return to more stimulating sectors of the Dominion. The thought that this primitive, peripheral system could offer any genuine resistance never even brushed the surface of his consciousness. The Cathar scouting flotilla, comprising the cruisers Stalwart Claw, Piercing Gaze, and Iron Mandible, emerged from the roiling, non-Euclidean geometries of hyperspace with practiced ease, shimmering into reality at the desolate outer edge of the Sol system. Sub-Commander Tethys, aboard his flagship, the Stalwart Claw, stretched his primary manipulator limbs with a sigh of bored resignation. He regarded the distant, pale yellow dot of Sol on the main view screen with a distinct lack of interest. Sub-Lieutenant Vreen, Tethys addressed his communications officer, his voice a low rumble. Commence standard system survey, deploy threat assessment drones on a wide perimeter scan, and broadcast the standard Dominion non-aggression proclamation on all detectable primitive frequencies. Let us be about this tedious business with haste. The Cathar cruisers, though designated as scouts, were vessels of considerable power by pre-Aegis human standards. Each was armed with multiple particle beam emitters capable of gutting unshielded vessels, and protected by layered energy shields that could absorb substantial punishment. As they glided deeper into the Sol system, their sophisticated sensor arrays swept the void, cataloging asteroids, cometary debris, and the faint, chaotic M leakage emanating from Earth. They registered no FTL signatures, no exotic energy patterns that would indicate a species on the cusp of interstellar travel. Only the predictable, messy transmissions of a world still largely confined to its own gravity well. This, however, was precisely what Aegis Command had anticipated. Lurking within the dense clutter of the asteroid belt, nestled in the irregular, shadowy orbits of Kuiper Belt objects, and even powered down within the craters of Mars's diminutive moons, lay the vanguard of the newly christened Sol Guard. Dozens of human Aegis-class destroyers and the smaller, faster Stiletto-class corvettes, their hulls coated in chameleonic, radar-absorbent plating and running on ghost-silent, minimal power, tracked the Cathar intruders. Their very existence was a testament to 5 years of frantic, unified human effort. From the heavily fortified Aegis Lunar Command, deep beneath the vast, grey plains of the Mare Imbrium, General Armitage and Dr. Aris Thorne watched the unfolding scenario. The tension in the command center was a palpable entity. "They're adhering to your psychological profile almost perfectly, Doctor," Armitage observed, his voice a low growl. His knuckles were white where he gripped the edge of his console. "Dismissive, arrogant. They expect no resistance." Thorne, his eyes darting between tactical displays and alien telemetry readouts, nodded. "Their doctrines are rigid, General. They haven't encountered true asymmetric warfare from a species they've already categorized as inferior. Major Rostova's Void Shrike squadrons should be moving into final intercept positions now." Eva Rostova's Void Shrikes were a specialized wing of Stiletto-class corvettes, heavily modified for speed, maneuverability, and electronic warfare. They were currently positioned far above and below the ecliptic plane, invisible to the Cathar's planar-focused sensor sweeps, poised to descend like predatory birds. As the Cathar flotilla cruised past the orbit of Mars, Tethys idly remarked to his bridge crew, "A most unremarkable system. scarcely worth the fuel to catalogue its dreary rocks. His casual dismissal hung in the air of the stalwart Claw's bridge. It was at that precise moment that Admiral Julian Hackett, commanding the Sol Guard fleet from the lead destroyer UNS Valiant, hidden within a dense cluster of Trojan asteroids, gave the terse, encrypted command. "All units, execute Shattered Mirror." Instantly, dozens of specially designed decoy drones, previously dormant, flared to life across the Cathar sensor screens. These drones mimicked the energy signatures of much larger human capital ships, scattering in unpredictable vectors, deliberately designed to overwhelm the Cathar tactical displays with a sudden deluge of false targets. The Cathar bridge crews, accustomed to the orderly sensor data of compliant or primitive systems, were momentarily stunned by the chaotic bloom of contacts. Simultaneously, the real human ships surged from their hiding places. Their experimental cloaking devices, reverse-engineered from theories gleaned from the Night's Whisper, shimmered as they engaged, rendering them fleeting ghosts on Cathar screens. The Void Shrike squadrons, under Rostova's direct command, dove from their high perches, engines burning hot. They didn't aim for kills, they aimed for disruption. Swarms of Harpy missiles, intelligent projectiles specifically designed to seek out and disable shield emitters, streaked towards the Cathar cruisers. The Cathar, their formations already disrupted by the sensor ghosts and the unexpected appearance of multiple high-velocity contacts, found their shields flickering and failing under the Harpy assault. Before they could fully react, the Aegis-class destroyers decloaked at terrifyingly close range, their heavy railguns firing solid slugs of osmium at a fraction of light speed, slamming into the surprised alien vessels. The Iron Mandible, caught in a crossfire between two destroyers, saw its primary shield generators explode. Hull plates buckled, and internal explosions blossomed along its spine. The piercing gaze attempted a desperate evasive maneuver, but human ships, significantly smaller and more agile than their Cathar counterparts, danced around its particle beam arcs, their newly developed plasma cannons searing deep wounds into its superstructure. Aboard the stalwart Claw, Sub-Commander Tethys was jolted from his bored stupor into horrified disbelief. "Report, identify those bogies, return fire," he bellowed, his voice cracking. His crew, trained for systematic pacification, struggled to adapt to the ferocious three-dimensional chaos. The human tactics were unlike anything in Cathar combat simulations. Brutal, fast, and seemingly coordinated by a hive mind that anticipated their every move. They weren't fighting like primitives, they were fighting like demons. Within 30 minutes, the engagement was a slaughter. The stalwart Claw, Tethys's flagship, was a burning wreck, its engines silenced, its life support failing. Just before his bridge was consumed by a cascading series of explosions, Tethys, his imperial arrogance shattered, managed to transmit a single, garbled and utterly frantic distress signal into the void. Ambush Sol system, unknown tactics, overwhelming force, heavy losses, they are not primitive, repeat, not primitive. The signal cut off abruptly. Shortly thereafter, the piercing gaze, its internal structure fatally compromised, erupted in a silent, brilliant flash of vaporizing metal and venting plasma. The Iron Mandible, adrift, powerless and bleeding atmosphere, was quickly surrounded by human corvettes. Rostova's Void Marines, in their heavily armed boarding craft, latched onto its hull, blasting their way inside to secure the Cathar survivors, the first alien prisoners of war in human history, and more importantly, intact alien technology. The chaotic dance of battle subsided. The Sol system once again fell into an uneasy silence, broken only by the disciplined crackle of human communication channels as the Sol Guard began the grim tasks of search and rescue, damage assessment, and salvage. Humanity had drawn first blood. The echo of Tethys's desperate, dying warning was already streaking across the interstellar void, a harbinger of a conflict that had just, irrevocably, begun. The Cathar Dominion's reaction to the garbled, terrifying last testament of Sub-Commander Tethys was not merely shock. It was a profound, systemic convulsion. The signal, fragmented and laced with static though it was, painted an unthinkable, insulting tableau. 3 Cathar light cruisers, vessels of the esteemed Dominion fleet, not just engaged, but utterly annihilated by a species catalogued as Tier 7 emergent nuisance. The very concept was an aberration, a tear in the fabric of galactic reality, as the Cathar understood it. Disbelief quickly curdled into a species-wide, incandescent rage. Grand strategist Vorlag, the architect of Cathar military doctrine for nearly a standard century, felt the sting of public humiliation most acutely. His earlier pronouncements dismissing the Earth anomaly now echoed mockingly in the vast chambers of the High Command. His multifaceted eyes, usually cold and calculating, burned with a dangerous light. He demanded immediate, overwhelming, and exemplary retribution. An emergency session of the Cathar High Command was convened on Cathar Prime, the air thick with unspoken accusations and the urgent thrum of a war machine stirring from complacent slumber. The decision was swift and brutal. Task Force retribution. This was to be no mere punitive expedition. It was a statement. A hammer blow designed to shatter the upstart humans and serve as a chilling lesson to any other nascent species contemplating defiance. Leading this formidable armada would be Overlord Krill, a Cathar warlord renowned for his ruthlessness and unwavering adherence to the doctrine of total victory. His flagship, the Dominator's Fist, was a dreadnought of terrifying proportions, a mobile fortress bristling with enough firepower to sterilize a planet. Accompanying it were two more dreadnoughts of the same class, 5 newly commissioned Obliterator-class battlecruisers, a dozen Executioner-class heavy cruisers, and a swarm of support vessels, tenders, and troop transports carrying legions of Cathar shock troops. The Cathar deliberately allowed news of Task Force Retribution's assembly and dispatch to leak through neutral channels, a calculated act of psychological warfare intended to cow the humans into submission before the first shot was even fired, and to remind the rest of the galaxy of the price of insolence. Word of this impending storm reached the Sol system through Aegis Command's nascent interstellar sensor network, a string of listening posts and repurposed Cathar communication nodes salvaged from the wreckage of Tethys's flotilla. The intelligence painted a grim picture. General Armitage, Admiral Hackett, Dr. Thorne, and Major Rostova convened an emergency council in the Lunar Command bunker. The mood was somber. "We bloodied their nose, and now they're sending the whole arm," Hackett stated, his voice heavy. "Our Sol Guard, even with the element of surprise, can't stand toe-to-toe with a full Cathar battle group. Their firepower, their numbers, it's an order of magnitude beyond what we faced with Tethys's scouts." Dr. Aris Thorne, however, saw a glimmer of desperate opportunity amidst the gloom. His mind, always racing, was piecing together Cathar psychology from the intercepted data, from their predictable response to the loss of the scouting flotilla. "They are enraged," Thorne theorized, pacing the confined space of the war room. "Their pride has been wounded. They won't just want to defeat us, they'll want to make an example of Earth. They will pursue us relentlessly, seeking a decisive, crushing engagement to broadcast their dominance." He paused, his eyes fixing on a holographic projection of the Sol system. "Jupiter," he murmured, tapping the colossal gas giant. "Its radiation belts are lethal. Its magnetosphere is a chaotic maelstrom. Its gravity well is immense. To them, it's an obstacle. To us, it could be a fortress, a trap." Thus Operation Tarpit was conceived, a plan so audacious, so fraught with peril that it bordered on suicidal. The core idea was to leverage humanity's perceived weakness and the Cathar's predictable aggression. The Sol Guard would not attempt a stand-up fight in the clear. Instead, they would engage Task Force Retribution in the outer system, offering just enough resistance to appear defiant, but ultimately outmatched. Then they would feign a panicked, disorganized retreat, deliberately drawing Overlord Krill's armada deeper and deeper into the Sol system, straight towards the gravitational maw of Jupiter. Specialized human units, equipped with experimental gravity wave emitters, a volatile, powerful offshoot of Thorne's FTL research, and newly developed electromagnetic pulse, EMP generators, would be covertly prepositioned within Jupiter's turbulent upper atmosphere and amongst its larger Galilean moons. As Overlord Krill's imposing Task Force Retribution transitioned into the Sol system, their massive warships dwarfing the human vessels that rose to meet them, they were met with what appeared to be a desperate, ill-fated defense. The initial salvos from the Cathar dreadnoughts were devastating. Human destroyers, shields flaring and buckling, were vaporized or crippled. The UNS Valiant, Admiral Hackett's flagship, took heavy fire, its port nacelle shorn away, its internal structure groaning under the impacts. As per the agonizing plan, Hackett ordered a staged retreat, sacrificing several corvettes and a heavily damaged destroyer to sell the illusion of a fleet on the verge of collapse. Aboard the Dominator's Fist, Overlord Krill observed the unfolding battle with grim satisfaction. The Primitives were resisting with a surprising, if futile, tenacity, but their fate was sealed. Their courage is noteworthy, Krill conceded to his bridge officers, his voice laced with contempt. But ultimately it is the courage of fools. Helm, pursue them. Maintain firing solutions. Leave no vessel intact. Their homeworld will bear witness to their complete and utter annihilation. The Cathar fleet, a wave of metallic fury, surged forward, their disciplined formations loosening slightly in their eagerness for the kill, their powerful engines driving them inexorably past Mars, through the scattered debris of the asteroid belt, straight into the deepening shadow of Jupiter. Just as Aris Thorn had predicted, the bait was taken, the trap was set. As the battered remnants of the Sol Guard fled deeper into Jupiter's colossal gravitational embrace, Overlord Krill, aboard the Dominator's Fist, pushed his task force Retribution relentlessly. His orders were clear: annihilate the human fleet, then reduce their homeworld to a salutary lesson. The Cathar warships, marvels of engineering though they were, began to register minor system fluctuations as they plunged into the gas giant's increasingly intense radiation belts and buffeting magnetosphere. Krill, focused on the fleeing human ships appearing as tantalizing sparks on his tactical display, dismissed these environmental anomalies as inconsequential. His ships were shielded for stellar phenomena far more extreme. This arrogance, this ingrained belief in Cathar technological supremacy, was the cornerstone of Operation Tarpit. Concealed within the roiling, ochre and crimson ammonia clouds of Jupiter's upper atmosphere, and lurking in the deep, shadowed craters of moons like Io, Europa, and Ganymede, humanity's hidden assets, the Harbinger units, silently powered up. These were not elegant warships, but heavily shielded, ruggedized platforms, little more than massive engines strapped to the experimental gravity wave emitters and wide-spectrum EMP generators developed in Thorn's clandestine labs. They were crewed by volunteers, men and women who knew this might be a one-way mission. Admiral Hackett, his flagship UNS Valiant trailing plasma and limping on auxiliary power, watched the Cathar armada close the distance. Every instinct screamed for him to turn and fight, but he held to the agonizing plan. When the tactical plot showed Krill's fleet optimally positioned within the pre-calculated kill box, Hackett took a ragged breath and transmitted the two-word encrypted signal that would unleash hell: Spring Trap. The effect was not immediate, explosive destruction, but something far more insidious. The Harbinger units, scattered across hundreds of thousands of kilometers, activated their gravity wave emitters. These were not weapons designed to crush hulls, but to subtly, yet powerfully, manipulate the localized gravitational fields. Focused beams of distorted spacetime, invisible and undetectable by conventional Cathar sensors, rippled through Jupiter's already complex gravitational environment. For the Cathar ships, it was like sailing into a sudden, violent cross-current in an otherwise calm sea. Their sophisticated inertial dampeners, designed to counteract the G-forces of their own powerful engines, strained and sometimes failed to compensate for the unexpected, multi-vector gravitational shearing. Ships lurched, formations broke as vessels were nudged off course, and targeting solutions became nightmarishly unstable. Internal alarms shrieked across Cathar bridges as navigators fought for control. Simultaneously, the second phase of the ambush struck. Other Harbinger units, timed to perfection, detonated their EMP charges. These were not simple electromagnetic pulses, they were Jovian-enhanced, their destructive energies amplified and focused by Jupiter's own immense magnetosphere, creating waves of electrical chaos that washed over the Cathar fleet. While Cathar military hardware was robustly shielded against standard EMP attacks, the sheer intensity and unpredictable fluctuating nature of these Jovian superpulses began to find seams in their defenses. Secondary systems flickered and died. Shield emitters sputtered, weakened by the gravitational distortions and now hammered by rogue currents. Targeting sensors, already struggling with the gravitational eddies, went haywire, filled with ghost images and phantom energy readings. Report, status report. What is this interference? Overlord Krill thundered from the command chair of the Dominator's fist, his voice, for the first time, betraying a hint of alarm as crimson warning icons cascaded across his main view screen. His sensor officers, their carapaces slick with stress-induced secretions, struggled to interpret the maelstrom of contradictory data. They were being assailed by an enemy they couldn't see, using weapons they didn't understand, in an environment that had suddenly turned malevolent. Before the Cathar could begin to comprehend the nature of the attack, let alone formulate a counter, Major Eva Rostova led her Void Shrike squadrons and heavily reinforced marine boarding parties, launching from concealed bays on Ganymede and Callisto. The human ships, smaller, more nimble, and specifically designed with enhanced shielding to operate within Jupiter's harsh embrace, darted through the now disrupted Cathar formations like predatory fish. Their plasma torpedoes weren't aimed for catastrophic kills, but for surgical disabling strikes, targeting engines already struggling against gravitational shear, weapon arrays flickering from EMP damage. Then came the boarding craft. These were not elegant shuttles, but brutish, heavily armored assault landers, nicknamed Rhinos by the Void Marines. They slammed into the hulls of disoriented Cathar cruisers, battlecruisers, and even the mighty dreadnoughts, their breaching charges blasting molten holes through alien armor. Void Marines, clad in new-generation powered combat suits and armed with shot-scatter plasma rifles, flechette launchers, and gravhammers designed for close-quarters carnage, poured into the alien vessels. The fighting inside was brutal, a confusing labyrinth of alien corridors filled with acrid smoke, emergency lights, and the terrified, guttural shouts of Cathar soldiers. The Cathar, while formidable warriors in open-field engagements or ship-to-ship combat, were unprepared for the sheer ferocity and desperate, almost berserker efficiency of human marines fighting in the claustrophobic confines of their own dying ships. Overlord Krill watched in horrified disbelief as his magnificent task force Retribution, the pride of the Cathar Dominion, was systematically dismantled by an invisible hand and boarded by primitives who fought with the savagery of cornered animals. The Dominator's fist itself came under direct assault. Its shields, already weakened by the Jovian environment and focused EMP strikes, buckled under a concentrated barrage from several human destroyers that had seemingly appeared from nowhere. Breaching pods slammed into its superstructure. Rostova, her face a grim mask of determination, personally led the boarding party, storming the primary command citadel of the Cathar flagship. The Battle of Jupiter, or the Jovian Gambit, as it would later be enshrined in human military history, raged for 12 agonizing hours. It was not a battle of grand fleets exchanging broadsides, but a confused, chaotic melee of crippled giants being torn apart by agile jackals, a testament to unconventional warfare and the exploitation of an enemy's arrogance. Finally, with much of his fleet disabled, adrift, captured, or simply vanished into Jupiter's crushing depths, and with human marines battling their way through the corridors of the Dominator's fist, their combatants mere decks away from his personal command center, Overlord Krill, his chitin cracked and his spirit broken, was forced to issue the most humiliating order of his long career: a full retreat for any Cathar vessel still capable of FTL jump. He escaped, his dreadnought limping and scarred, but his fleet was shattered, his invincible reputation in tatters. The Cathar Dominion had been dealt a blow from which its aura of invincibility would never fully recover. The Jovian Gambit, a victory born of desperation, ingenuity, and a profound understanding of an adversary's hubris, sent shockwaves rippling across the known galaxy. Humanity, the supposedly primitive species from the insignificant Sol system, had not only defied, but decisively defeated a Cathar battle group. In the aftermath, Earth, speaking now with the unified voice of the Aegis Accords, issued the Sol Mandate. The Sol system was declared sovereign human territory. Any unauthorized FTL transition, any uninvited military presence within its borders would be met with immediate and lethal force. Humanity was not yet a galactic superpower, not by any stretch of the imagination, but they were now a recognized and deeply unsettling new player on the interstellar stage. a species that had proven, in spectacular fashion, that underestimation could be the deadliest misjudgment of all. Other species, long chafing under Cathar dominance or observing from the cautious neutrality of the sidelines, took careful, thoughtful note. The age of unchallenged Cathar supremacy had met an unexpected and brutally effective end. The balance of power in the galaxy had just begun to shift.